And I'm going to log in here as an analyst. In this case, I'm going to navigate to the financial account folder. We're going to do a couple things here. First, I'm going to just open up an existing report that was maybe already created, and then we'll build a new report from scratch. So if I go ahead and right-click on this report and choose Modify, now this is opening up the capability here within the business objects framework that allows for this ad hoc. Is called Web Intelligence. So in essence, like I said, this was a report that may have already been built. It was already in filters here by company, drop down, and business unit. We're looking at just broke down by object account. So if I want to here go down to say I want to filter this on one company per se, it'll roll that up. If I want to see this maybe not broken down by object account but by business unit, I'll just grab a business unit, drag it right on the grid. Okay. So now I'm seeing a breakdown by object account. If I want to look at my year-to-date actual budget variance here instead of period, year-to-date, and cumulative, I can go ahead and just drag in year-to-date actuals, year-to-date budget, right on top of the others, and variance. Okay. And go in here, insert sums. Click on the Analysis tab, insert a sum for our different columns. So this is kind of what would typically be used for. Again, I'm logged in as an analyst in this example, but typically anybody who's the way that this works, and we'll build one from scratch, you'll kind of see once you have those universes in place, all the objects have already been defined and the relationships have been defined for the user, so they can truly just drag objects into a canvas and start building out their content. So I brought in here by business unit. Let's say I want to bring in like market. I can bring in market into my equation here. And I can go ahead and group on this by right-clicking on that, choose set as a section. So real quick, we're starting to get the data broken down. We can go here as one tab. If I right-click on that tab and duplicate that. So like a spreadsheet, you can go in and create different or in a workbook, kind of have different tabs of your spreadsheet. Same would apply here. So you're in essence querying the data once, bringing that data back to the report, but then you can slice and dice that data, 20 different ways on 20 different tabs. Also you can do is you can create multiple queries here. So I could be querying GL and AP and HR and inventory and sales, all these queries going out, relating them together and bringing back data all into one report here as well. Extremely powerful in what you can do. This is, again, one of the strengths of business objects, because the layer that sits in between the data and the business user is the most powerful of any of the competing products. So we'll go ahead and make changes here. We go ahead and save the report back. I'm going to go ahead and close out. We're going to go ahead and just build a new one from scratch so you kind of see how we get to a starting point. If I close out of this, under Applications, I've got as this analyst exposure to Explorer and Web Intelligence. If I click on Web Intelligence, it's going to go ahead and that same control or the design window that I was just in is now going to come up. But to start a new report, I go up here and choose New. It'll say, okay, what do you want to grab? I want to grab a universe. So give me my list of the universes that I've been granted rights to. In this case, I'm going to do an open PO report. So I'm going to grab my distribution procurement detail universe. Select that. So the users would then define, again, I know I want to build a purchasing report. I've grabbed the purchasing universe. That's the first step. So again, the user would have to know what type of report they want to build. In this case, I can just go from the list here and start grabbing objects, and from the outline on the left, I can drag this into my result objects. That will define what objects I can slice and dice in my queries. Query filters, I can preview the data if we want. I'm going to go ahead and grab like branch plant and description, maybe our company and name, second item and description here. Go down, I want maybe the order number. You just double click as well versus dragging them over. Maybe we want to look here at our supplier name. Let's go down to our dates and maybe we want to pull in our order date. And let's go down to our amounts and units. In this case, pull amount open and maybe our quantity open. Okay. So because I want to analyze what my open purchase orders are, I'm just going to go ahead and grab in our amount open, drag those down to my filters, and say I want my amount open to be not equal to 0. If they're 0, then I'm assuming that they're not open. Okay. Any other criteria you have to define what's an open PO obviously could be leveraged here. You can grab any object into this list. They'll prompt a list of values, so you can kind of select from a drop-down list, and very powerful there as well. We'll go ahead and run the query. So what it's doing right now is it's actually going out there based on the objects that I've defined through the universe. It passed, in essence, a SQL statement to the database, returned the data, and then aggregated the data based on the objects that I had. So there could have been 50 million records in the database and that table, but because I only grabbed these set of objects, it basically came back with one unique aggregated row of data just by branch, plant, company, item, order number, supplier, and order date. Okay, you can then start taking this, and I can go ahead and start grabbing objects here and deleting them from the canvas. And as I'm doing that, it's re-aggregating the data. So you'll see the dollars just start to aggregate and sum higher based on the objects that are there. If I right-click on the tab down here, I can choose Add a Report. Right? If I just want to start from a blank canvas. In this case, maybe I want to get just one row for each supplier and amount. If I just drag in my supplier, right, I can see my suppliers and just grab my amount. Okay, so here's my amount open by supplier. We'll go ahead and take this. Maybe I want to sort this in descending order, so highest dollar. So I've got Winery Estates at the highest amount. If I wanted to go ahead and insert a sum at the bottom here, we can go ahead and choose a sum. It'll sum that column. Let's go ahead and take a copy of this data. Let's say I want to put a chart right next to this, a pie chart. I can go ahead and hold Control, drag this to the right. I can go ahead and right-click on that block of data and choose Turn Into, right here, a pie chart. Okay. So right now we've, in essence, are looking at a pie. Now let's say that, so this is one of my tabs, and I can rename these. Right-click on that, rename. This might be Open Amount by Supplier. Okay, what if I want to duplicate this tab as well? I can duplicate this tab. Now this time I want to see by supplier, but also within each branch plant. Right, so if I go ahead and just drag in branch plant into my data set here, right? Or better yet, let me go back and do an undo on that. Let's say instead of seeing, before we go and just do the breakdown, if I wanted to see total open amount by branch plant, regardless of supplier, I can just drag the branch plant right over supplier. It'll just swap that out. Right, so now we're seeing the total for each branch plant. Maybe let's bring back our supplier. And let's go ahead and create a grouping here by branch plant. If I right-click on that, set as a section. Right. So now within each branch plant, we've got the supplier. Now our chart over here, because we're only dealing with the suppliers, eventually we'll get in. Now what if I wanted, again, go back to some of those filters we saw in the trial balance report. If I click on this filter bar, it allows to create, just drop objects on top of that. So if I grab our branch plant, drop that right on that filter bar, and then give me a list of all the different branch plants, I can go ahead and select, let's say, the Eastern Distribution Center, right, and brings us just to that data. What if we wanted to see this chart not by customers, but maybe by items? All right, we can go ahead on the chart area, right-click on that, and assign data. It's pulling amount open. Maybe this wanted to be by item instead of supplier. So now, in essence, we're looking at, I mouse over the chart, it kind of gives me the overview of what the different pieces entail. Okay. So once you've built out the reports that you want, you can go ahead, like I said, create different tabs, create multiple queries against even multiple data sources. So it doesn't have to be just different modules within JD Edwards. It could be some against JD Edwards, some against non-JD Edwards. You can then link the data amongst the result sets. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Do a save as, and I'm going to call this. I'm going to go down to my distribution. I'm going to call this maybe open purchase orders. Okay. So now, as my analyst, I built the report that was requested of me, and I put it back out there. I contact the individual who wants to be able to just review it and refresh it on the fly. So if I navigate back to that distribution folder and go to open purchase orders, if I right-click on that and choose view, by just choosing view, it's now actually making that same call to the database. So if now 10 new purchase orders are open, those will now be reflected in what I see back as a user. And you have different viewers, so you might have some users that you want to be able to then make changes on the fly themselves and resort and re-add and change. There's also some web-based viewers and PDF viewers where people could just open up the static content and can't make changes. So it all depends upon the audience and what their rights might be in the system. So that was just viewing it on the fly. Again, all these have the ability to go ahead and save as. You can export down to, you can send to an email or to a user's inbox within the system. You can go ahead and export reports, all different formats, whether or not you want to be exported out from the web view to a PDF or Excel, and it'll come across formatted in those formats as well. So if I want to not just view that on the fly, I can also schedule this. So maybe I want to run this report every night and have it emailed to somebody or myself. If I go ahead and right-click and choose Schedule, it's now going to go ahead and show me, if I click on Recurrence, I can schedule my now by default once in the future, right? Specify the date and time I want that to run. Maybe I want it to be daily, so I can specify how many days I want this to run. Or I want to run on a weekly basis on certain days of the week. Right? So these are all different ways you can set up recurring schedules of these reports. I'm just going to run this on as of now so we can kind of see the results immediately. Formats, the web intelligence would be if you want to be in that web format where people may still be able to slice and dice. That's the web intelligence format, or you can go directly to another format like Excel or PDF or CSV. Okay. If I then go and choose destinations, by default this enterprise location means it's within the business objects BI web infrastructure, meaning that people can only access it by logging in and viewing it, or if you sent them a link back to that and they had rights to the system, they'd be able to see it. Now, you can also have something run to someone's inbox in the system or email. So if I do email, you could email something out as an attachment, as let's say like a PDF, or let's say it's confidential information. You can actually send out a URL. If it's confidential, the user, if they don't have rights to the system and they happen to get that email and click on that link, they wouldn't be able to see the content. So that's another way to secure confidential information. Okay. And you can also, like if you want to just have something sent out to a file system or your network drive, you can do that as well. Okay. Once I've chosen all the options that we want, we can go ahead and hit Schedule here. It's now going to take me to a history screen. You can see the stat says pending. If I hit refresh, it'll then say running. And then once the query has been completed, it'll actually say success. Once it's completed, it'll say success. Go ahead and click on the instance time, in essence, and now we're viewing that as a end user report viewer. Okay. So just to recap, again, as an analyst, we logged in, opened up a report, made some changes, built a new query from scratch, saved it back, then scheduled it,